Okay, today, women treasures. We learned on the Daf about women treasures, so I thought about all things monetary and women. And mainly that takes us to the Middle Ages and the early modern period. And there's two people that stand out in all of this, which we know from the records of the non-Jews, and we also know from our own records. So the two people I want to speak about are Licoricia. I think that's how you say Licoricia. I'm not sure. Anyways, she's of a place in England called Winchester, 97 kilometers southwest of London, and also Gluckel of Hamelin in the 17th century in Germany. There's many people in between, but these are all representative. So first, the unpronounceable one, Licorice, whatever her name is, Licoricia. And she ran a kind of a kingdom in a way. She was in England. She had a number of sons. She got married twice. And her name is very interesting because many of the names of the time were fashionable with the Jews and non-Jews. And we've got names like Floria, Saffronia, Almonda, Corticia. All right, anyways, those are the fashionable names. And she took a very popular name. Now, she was eventually widowed. She had 3 sons. And what she did was she was very involved in money lending. And what turns into money lending in the Middle Ages is pawn shops or actually used goods, because you often take collateral, and that collateral often stays with you if the person who borrowed the money, the borrower, can't pay it back. Now, what's interesting is this Parshat Emor, is very interesting because her son, Asher, she had a number of sons, was imprisoned in the Winchester Castle in 1287. There was a lot of taxes imposed and the government kind of wanted him as a surety. So they put him in and he etched on the wall the following words. On Friday, Erev Shabbat, Parshat Emor, all the Jews of the land of this isle were imprisoned. I, Asher, inscribed this. The Jews in Winchester lived in a place called Drury Street, which you can go see today. It's still called that. I looked it up, and there it was, Drury Street. Now, why she's important is because she was just one of the regular money lenders and people who had banks. Because remember, there were no banks then, and the Jews were doing the banking. You should know at that time, it wasn't only Jewish people doing banking, it was Italians, and it was many, many other groups were represented in this kind of very lucrative, actually, high-risk employment. Now, what's interesting about her also is that she did very, very well. She went on to continue. And what's interesting about money lenders is, in the whole era, is they didn't just sit in their house and wait for people to come to them. They used to go out to the farmers, and the farmers needed them and they needed the money. So these kinds of women, often with an accompaniment, but not always, would go out there. The second woman I wanted to talk about was Gluckel of Hamelin in the 17th century. She's very popular too, and she's well known because she wrote a diary. And the diary is quite large, and it was translated into many languages. She wrote it in Old Yiddish, and it was translated into more modern Yiddish, English, Russian, and many other languages. Now, she was also a wonderful businesswoman. She didn't only do money lending, she also did jewelry trading, business, setting up business, making contracts, drafting contracts, redrafting contracts to make them better and stronger. And when her husband died, he said the following thing: I have no instructions. My wife, she knows everything. That's our Gluckel. Let her do as she has done until now. So she was given a lot of power, and she made a lot of money for her children. She was in the 1600s and 1700s, and she unfortunately died penniless because her second husband, who was a banker, seemed to squander all the money that she so carefully made and carefully contained. Now, there's a picture of her, but not of her. There's a painting, and it was Bertha Pappenheim who sat and said she was Gluckel of Hamlin, even though she was just a relative, but she certainly looks like her. She's wearing high neck and everything. I'm wearing a high neck in her honor. And she was an amazing woman. She was just an amazing woman, and she, of course, was in Germany, where there were not that many Jews, but the Jews there had been living there for a long, long time. By the time she got there, they had been there since the 10th century. So, about 1013, sorry, the 11th century, and they were doing very well. So those are the two women I want to talk about, and it reminded me when I heard the word treasure today in the daf.